And
absolutely
I think my paper.
No one missed me. No one
I
missed
think
me.
my papers fell.
Yes, I admit I'm the one who dumped the papers.
Okay.
By mistake. It was an accident.
I had everything all lined
Yes,
up. I
you
could
did.
just come waltzing in here.
Yeah,
and
yeah. You like to waltz
doing
in.
my thing.
You're a waltzer.
I'm a waltzer.
All right. I'm a wolf.
Are you gonna do the headsets just because
Yes.
it makes you look
Right.
better?
Oh yeah, makes you look more official. There you go.
Man,
There you go.
time is just flying. I thought yesterday was Monday and now it's Friday already. I mean, it's
I worry about you sometimes.
well, I didn't
man.
literally think that, but it just has that feeling.
Okay. No.
And it is
It's a non-short week. That's what this is the first week that we've had
yeah, the full week.
the full week in
The
a while.
full week. What's going on?
So
Yes.
we have an exterminator here.
We have a what?
Exterminator here. Apparently, there's a rodent.
There is a rodent problem. Yes,
Yeah.
It's only in Dan's office.
it's in
though.
my
He's
office.
here right now, so I'll
Oh.
get him to your office then.
Yes.
Alrighty, come on.
We're streaming this.
Oh yes. Whole thing.
Maybe we
There
should
you
be
go.
sending this on to the landlord.
I know.
Just
yeah,
saying.
No, we're trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not good. What can I say about that?
I
yes,
have
there
no
is.
idea.
Okay. All I could say is what?
Live TV.
Live TV. Yeah, no, definitely.
Do I need to zoom in on me? I look like I'm like in left field.
Isn't that where you usually reside?
They're always
No, I'm in left field.
Oh.
I don't need to look like it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
My looks are the only thing I get going now.
There you go. Oh, much nicer. Now we can see the infield.
Yep, that's better.
Much better. And
Much
I still
better.
get this guy over my shoulder.
Still has him there. Yes, I'm always looking over your shoulder,
That's-
Jimmy.
I know some people that actually think somebody should be looking over my shoulder.
Either way, thank God it's Friday.
That's
Hit it,
right.
Steve.
You're tuned in to Behind the Media. Dan Lothian and
Which one?
Jimmy Young bring 70 years of award-winning
Oh, yeah.
broadcast
Oh, by the way,
experience to
I
the
should add in
table.
there
From
George's
newsrooms
W.
across the
Bush
country,
farewell
behind
ceremony.
anchor desks and in the field,
This is-
they've seen and covered it all. Now they are here to take you behind the media.
You're
They
going
have
to have to
maps and
embrace
farewell.
technology. If you're an
Oh,
educator,
I'm embracing it.
I want you to use
You
the
can
phone
use it. No.
to help teach these
You
kids.
don't need to do that. I was covering the president in China, and we did a behind-the-scenes video. This is a gong, or
No,
she
not
put-
a gong, a bong
A
with
bong.
a B.
That's right. Did I say
The
gong?
gong is a
That's
gong
right.
show.
I said gong.
Gong
Bong.
makes noise.
Bong. Why is it, Jimmy? Why?
Because sex sells, Dan!
True, but it's only part of the answer. It is, you have to be more creative now to be able to tell a story, and sometimes it's just a before and after picture and saying, which one do you want to be? The Secret Life of former CBS honcho Leslie Moonves. How did a media mogul find time to run a network if mounting allegations against him are true?
Would you like a retake, Dan?
Yeah, we can't. We're going live.
All right. Saying goodbye to number 41, President H.W. Bush. Touching eulogies, heart-wrenching images. We've been glued to the media's wall-to-wall coverage of former President George H.W. Bush's farewell, but some pundits and reporters are being hypocritical.
Do you suffer from tocophobia?
I thought we went over this. Wasn't this tacophobia?
No, it's tocophobia.
Tocophobia.
Tocophobia. It only gets worse.
And bites behind the media, including the re-release of Schindler's List and a survey that shows where most of you still consume your news, and Twitter, the darling ad platform that I ignore.
Are you getting close to wrapping up your holiday shopping or haven't even started yet? Put down the list, forget about the mad rush, and get caught up on the hottest topics in media. Welcome to this episode of Behind the Media. I'm Dan Lothian.
And I'm Jimmy Young.
We find the interesting in media, so you don't have to go searching for it. Like us on Facebook, use the hashtag Behind the Media to engage with us on Twitter, and listen on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and the CLNS Media Network. So the secret life of former CBS honcho Leslie Moonves. More juicy details are emerging, but first, this podcast is brought to you by Away. Thoughtful standards for modern travel. Away makes suitcases for the way we all actually travel with features like an ejectable TSA-approved battery or a built-in front pocket, and they come in a range of colors and materials that suit your travel style. Away has the perfect gift for everyone on your list because this holiday season, everyone wants to get away.
And
For-
Les Moonves should be getting away.
Right. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com and enter promo code CLNS. So, Jimmy, here is this guy who is a media mogul.
A pig.
Well,
I'm calling him a male pig.
some would definitely, again, these are just allegations at this point. Well, although we know he has lost his job at CBS for some of the pattern, the behavior over the however many years that he has been at the network. And I must point out, running the network successfully and, in fact, elevating the position of the network. And perhaps that's what's at the heart of all this, right? Money and power, and no one really wants to disrupt that. And so he's been getting away with a lot for a long period of time.
Why do people let powerful men that act like pigs get away with it? And isn't that what this Me Too movement is all about, to not let that happen anymore?
Yes, I think so. But the problem is, and I know in his particular case he has been pushed aside, but the sense is that maybe we didn't have all of the facts. We didn't have everything here in front of us. And it turns out that it might be even much worse, not only the allegations themselves, but allegedly what he has been doing to cover his tracks. Because as we know, there's a lot of money at stake here, right? What is it, $120 million payout at stake?
Exactly. That was his severance pay. And I think, obviously, the board of directors is trying to not pay that and justify their firing of this guy for cause because of his aberrant behavior.
Wait, you're thinking that they're digging in his past in order not to pay him out?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's. I mean, if somebody left and you owed them money,
right,
and you find out that their behavior wasn't exactly on the up and up,
right.
Yikes. There's so many double entendres in this story. And there's one disturbing moment, thing that I am going to have to kind of read and talk about. But if you find out all that stuff, it's like a savings. It's like the green stamps.
Right.
You remember green stamps?
Oh, no, that's a throwback.
That
now.
is a
For those of you who don't know, it was the supermarket Publix
right.
at the time that had these little stamps that you would get every time you bought something, and they were 1 penny stamps. There were more, I believe, even.
And you'd have books and
books. And you have these books, and once you collect the books, you can cash in the books for stuff.
So if
from
you're
the catalog.
saving, if there's a way to save money,
yes,
I would think you are trying to do that. By the way, we have created a generation that is so good at getting stuff for free on the internet.
Right.
Right?
No, definitely. Yes.
Okay. So, and again, I don't know who's on the CBS board of directors. I'm guessing it's not a lot of millennials because it's usually old guys.
Exactly.
Interesting enough, if it truly is controlled by the old boys network, as they say.
So you're saying this could be the reason why we're here watching and talking about this.
I think it's a reason to be thought about because it's all about money. Everything is about money, power, and reputation.
Yeah, but
and this is involved with all of it. And some of the stuff that you're reading about has been leaked by law firms.
Right. There are 2 law firms apparently that have been part of this investigation. And I should point out, by the way, Jimmy, when you say that now that the network finds out about this or the board finds out about this and they don't want to pay out, that you would be then suggesting that they didn't know about it. And I have to think, at least in one case, there is a suggestion that they knew something was going on. Now, they may not have known the extent of it, but they certainly knew that something was going on.
Correct. And I believe that they even tried to do an investigation, the board did, into his behavior. But
in the past, right.
In the past, right. But there's a story behind this story that does disturb me a little bit.
Okay, go ahead. What's that story behind the story?
It's attorney-client privilege in law.
Right.
And if law firms have leaks in their law firms...
Well, that's not good,
...that feed information to the media...
That is not a good thing.
In a lot of ways, I think that's breaking the law. You're breaking a trust between the client and someone you're paying. You're client.
No, you're right. I mean, and we don't know that it came from the law firms, but it seems as if, at least based on the articles that I read, it seems as if that's the only place that this information could have come from, because the investigation has not been completed. It certainly has not even been delivered to CBS.
Right.
And so you can't say that the leak happened over at CBS.
Right.
The only place where it currently exists is over the law firms. Now, we're guessing that perhaps it came from someone at the law firm, but I guess there's always that possibility that someone hacked into the system or something else. So it could be an external party that was involved in leaking this information.
Russians. I think that's what it was.
Well, of course
it's
it's a Russian. Everything's a Russian.
But it does say that a few people had access to the drafted report.
Right.
And, of course, the investigators are trying to diffuse the situation. But, look, we've seen recently the deterioration of the trust people might have with their physicians. And I'm thinking about the U.S. gymnastics, horrible with that Dr. Nasser.
Right.
And may he rot in hell.
Yeah. Which I think that's where he is now, and will be there forever.
And not long enough, as far as I'm concerned. But point being, he took advantage of the trust that you are supposed to have with your doctor, the doctor-patient, which I do draw a similarity to attorney-client privilege. What goes on in a attorney's office between a client and an attorney should be private.
Yeah, but
by the way,
Jimmy, but this,
we know.
this,
by
look,
the way,
yes.
Mr. Cohen knows that's not necessarily
but look,
true.
Jimmy. But the thing is, we that's for another issue. What you are talking about, right? Is really not germane to what this guy did. So it's a secondary problem that we have where someone leaked this information. But what's at the heart of this is a guy who was powerful, made hundreds of millions of dollars, probably billions of dollars over his career running a network, and had clearly some kind of at least allegations of inappropriate, that's saying it kindly, behavior with people who worked for him or were commissioned by him.
Commissioned. That's a great word, Dan.
So that's what jumped out at me.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I hate to. I'm going to just throw this out because it's a word that it's not a.
It's a podcast. You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Jimmy.
Blowjobs on call.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. That's really what I'm thinking here.
Ladies and gentlemen, close the ears of the kids.
That's right. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't think there are a lot of kids listening to this. But
he had a CBS employee
on call to perform oral sex.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's crazy stuff.
I think that's against the law. Isn't that acting like a? I mean, aren't you soliciting? Aren't you soliciting favors from someone?
I don't think that's against the law.
Without, how do you know that there wasn't any exchange of money?
Well, I mean, prostitution is not illegal. So I don't know that there's anything illegal here based on what we know, right? We don't know anything.
That's right. No.
All we know is some of this information
she said right now.
All we know is this information that has been leaked out. So we really don't know. But what we are gathering, this information that the New York Times has been putting out there that they got from this other party or parties or from somewhere, is that there was behavior that was not appropriate, inappropriate behavior for the head of a major network, far beyond even some of the things that we have heard about up to this point, right? Where you were flirting with someone or even, forcibly, pushing yourself on people who you work for or outside of work. I mean, this is
also
crazy.
A quid pro quo on that too, Dan.
Right.
If you really want to get ahead, it's the old casting couch philosophy of Hollywood.
Right, exactly.
Right? I mean, and again, men behaving badly. And only men, really and truly, the women can bring attention to it all they want, but it's men's behavior has to change. We, as a gender, have got to change how we talk to each other and also to females.
Right, and that, it's a difficult thing to change overnight. Because I think there has been such a culture.
Generations
right.
have we've had this going on for generations.
Exactly. And so perhaps the younger generation, the millennials, have come up during this time when they have seen how careers have been, shattered, when they have seen how lives have been turned upside down, how women have come forward and talked about the torment over years because of managers or others in areas of leadership have taken advantage of them. Perhaps the younger generation won't move forward in leadership roles where they think they can take advantage of women. I mean, we're not in a perfect world, and we will see this continue, but hopefully nowhere near the level that we've seen over past history.
No, and it's finally coming to a head, if you will, that that this stuff has been going on for a long time, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't think he deserves his severance pay at this point. I'm guessing that he's got plenty of dough that he will be able to take care of
I'm sure.
himself and
Although
his
he
family.
might lose some of that with lawsuits.
Oh, no question.
At some
He
point.
should. And
yeah.
by the way, he should lose some of it to lawsuits or
if
hush
these things
money,
turn out,
Dan.
if these things turn out to be
Settlements.
true,
They call
yeah.
them settlements, right? Isn't that what
I think that's
money
usually what it is, but
Yes.
typically insurance is paying for that. But my sense is he's going to have to dip into his pockets as well. I do want to circle back, though, to that issue that I brought up earlier, which is that, it's not only allegations of what he allegedly did to these women or this on-call person to service him who was on staff, but is this notion, again, this is just information that has been leaked, presumably from the law firms, that he has been, quote, evasive and untruthful at times, to have deliberately lied about minimized the extent of his sexual misconduct. And again, that's kind of how it always is, right? It's lying about what happened that gets you in trouble. Now, in this case, I think there's a lot more than that, but that certainly is part of it, at least it appears.
And guys always say, well, it was consensual. They always use that as their defense.
Right.
And you know what? At this point, there's a pattern. When you see a pattern, and I guess he's a good-looking guy, but I mean, still, I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's a man in power using his power for personal gain.
Right. No, definitely.
That's pretty much what it is.
And of course, we should point out that a spokesperson for Moonves, they
Denied
declined to comment on this draft report, but they did release a statement that said in part, quote, Mr. Moonves vehemently denies having any non-consensual sexual relations. That doesn't quite answer some of these other questions that are out there and these allegations, but at least a denial on that front from his spokesperson.
And exactly, where is that line of consensual and non-consensual, and who makes that decision up but those two people?
Yeah.
And those are the only two people who know what really happened.
They are the only ones. And apparently it's more than two people in this case, or two people when we're saying that one and
right. Oh,
the
two
other
to tangle,
one and him.
two
Right,
to tangle.
exactly.
I'm going with the A and B partners here, as it were.
Wow. I did not know all this stuff was going on behind closed doors.
No, well, I'm glad it wasn't done on, Times Square on TV.
That's right.
Although that would probably make great ratings, and after
fact-
all, we know that the porn industry does lead the way in
no.
a lot of these.
Oh, no.
A lot of these. I'm just
But of
saying,
course,
it's the most popular,
yes.
form of entertainment in this
Yes,
world.
and Jimmy would know.
Yes.
If you like this episode, let us know. Like us on Facebook. Use the hashtag #BehindTheMedia to engage with us on Twitter. Have any questions or comments, reach out to us at info@littlepartmedia.com. That's info@littlepartmedia.com.
I do a lot of reading, okay?
Yes, you do. Touching eulogies and heart-wrenching images, we've all been glued to the media's wall-to-wall coverage of former President George H.W. Bush's farewell ceremony. So, what's wrong with the picture? Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Behind the Media. I'm Dan Lothian.
And I'm Jimmy Young.
We find the interesting in media so you don't have to go searching for it. Like us on Facebook, use the hashtag #BehindTheMedia to engage with us on Twitter, and listen on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and the CLNS Media Network. Today's episode is powered by Away, thoughtful standards for modern travel. Away makes suitcases for the way we all actually travel, with features like an ejectable TSA-approved battery or a built-in front pocket, and they come in a range of colors and materials that suit your travel style. Away has the perfect gift for everyone on your list, because this holiday season, everyone wants to get away. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com and enter promo code CLNS. So, a lot of the coverage, and I watched quite a bit, not sitting in front of a television set, oftentimes, online, on my mobile device. And
who shook hands with who touched
That's
who,
right.
who
That's
ignored who. And
Yes.
and it was pretty. I got to tell you, it was a little uncomfortable even to watch
It
the
was
body language
uncomfortable.
of the row
Yes.
of presidents.
And boy, we could get into just how that's been covered. And I think, rightly so. People on the right argue that the liberal media, the way they covered this, was juxtaposing the past president with the current, or past presidents with the current. And you hear a lot of things like presidential
Non-presidential.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of that. And so those on the right have been complaining, hey, see, there's this, even at a memorial service, there is this effort to push down the current president, to make him look bad, even if he's just sitting there.
Well, it's not difficult. I'm sorry. I mean, he's a target. He's a target because he's created his own world.
And we could do a whole show on that.
We usually do, actually, Dan.
Everything from Jimmy's mouth has something to do with that.
That's against that, yes.
Right. But what I do want to talk about is the narrative around the former president. And again, this is someone I respect greatly. As you probably saw on my Facebook feed, I pointed out how he was someone who kind of really inspired me to cover national political leaders, because when I was back in college, I had the opportunity to attend a reception for then Vice President Bush. He was traveling in Chattanooga, and I wanted to interview him for my radio program on the college campus radio station. Actually went across Chattanooga, and I was trying to push myself through to get up there and not only ask him a question but also get a picture with him.
You were being aggressive.
It was the early days of Dan Lothian being aggressive.
That's right.
The Secret Service stopped me from moving forward.
I bet they did.
They did. Wasn't the last time that they would do that, but that was the first time.
Right.
And there wasn't a big commotion or anything like that, but at some point he turns around and sees something's going on, and he says, "What's going on?" And I don't know if there's exact words, but basically he was inquiring what was happening.
Yeah, is everything all right over there?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I said, well, I just, I'm Dan Lothian, and I'd love to just, take a picture with you and ask you a question, and they won't let me.
Did you identify yourself as a college reporter?
I don't know.
Okay.
What stands out in my mind is I wanted to take a picture with him, I think, is what it was.
Okay. So you were selfish, basically, Dan.
It was, and it probably
It
was
had
the
nothing
last
to do with bringing something back to your audience. It was about you.
Probably at the time it was.
God,
no, it was
that's
also
so out of
about. It was about.
You were
Well,
a
I
rebel in
changed over
college.
time.
I know you have. That's why I pointed it out.
I was found. It was the first time that I'd met a national figure, right? So I wanted to go up and say hi and take a picture and ask him a quick question and something I could talk about on my little radio show, right?
Right.
And so anyway, he sees this thing and he invites me up. He says, "Oh, let him through," kind of thing.
Nice.
And so he did, and we snuggled together. I mean,
Nice.
And the picture has been in my office, every office I've had. It's in the same old frame that I put it in. And not only that, but he signed the program, which over the years it's starting to fade because sunlight is fading the signature. But
weren't you a member of the liberal media at the time?
At the time, I don't know that they called it that.
Yeah, I know.
So no, I was not a member. I was not a card-carrying member of the liberal media.
Gotcha.
But but what it did show me, and I guess I respected it and certainly motivated me to do more of that kind of thing, and ultimately went on to cover presidents and vice presidents and others.
Right.
But as I was listening to a lot of the coverage out there, I was encouraged by similar stories of people talking about how he remembered the little guy, if you will, or how he never traveled on Thanksgiving. Often would not travel on Thanksgiving or on Christmas while he was president. Or vice president, because he wanted to make sure that the throngs of Secret Service agents who would have to accompany him if he were on the road could be home with their families.
Oh, that's nice.
That's a
human trait.
That's a real human trait.
Yeah,
right.
I remember when the president was human. Sorry, keep
right.
going.
See, it always comes back.
I know it does.
But I guess the reason. So that's something, and we've heard those stories, and I think that's wonderful. But here's the point that others have raised, and I've been thinking about as well. At the time when he was president, he was criticized heavily by the liberal media. People would say things like he's soft. They would, they hit him big time on what basically, I guess you could say, got him, ended up costing him a second term, which is he made this promise of not raising taxes, that famous quote, "Read my lips, no new taxes," and then eventually he won and he ended up having to raise taxes, and many believe that cost him a second term. There were a lot of things that were said by the magazines and by the newspapers and by the networks, and it seems as if those same people who were saying those things back then, all these years later, have a much different tune.
Well, come on. Now, and you're right, Dan, and that's what the premise of this article is. And I see that George Will called him a lapdog.
Right.
And he's
Back then, right.
Back then. And
By the way, this is in Town Hall, which is a conservative publication. Larry Elder, a conservative talk show host on radio, just wanted to set that. He was the one who wrote this piece,
up.
which
Right.
we were referring to.
Right, and they're talking about him being, in 97, a Newsweek writer termed him as a wimp.
Right.
Now, look, I don't like names. You know that.
Well,
I
you
don't
like me to call you
labels.
Jimmy.
Jimmy is that
Okay,
happens to be my name.
And you like Reverend Jimmy.
I don't mind
Or
Reverend Jimmy
Reverend
because
Young.
that's a sign of respect as well. I have respect for that.
Mm-hmm.
And this president served not just as a president, but also as a vice president.
Right.
For
And
8
was in the
years.
military and, I mean, doing stuff that, well, I've never
And
done.
he was a pretty darn good baseball player, too. Not that it has anything
Right.
to do with sports or anything like that, but he definitely was a baseball guy. Dan Shaughnessy in the Boston Globe recently did a great article about that. That being said, he's now passed on, Dan. I think after time, you don't I'm surprised hearing from you that this was written by a right-wing talk show host.
Well, I think what they were trying to say is that, I think what he was trying to say is that when you hear current criticism from the left media, remember that they too can change their tune at some point down the road. So why should you believe anything that they're saying? I think that's what he's saying, because you look at what reporters were saying, and they point out specifically things like Andrea Mitchell and others who Thomas from Newsweek.
Yep, don't die on me, because they did also call him a racist too. There was
They
some
called him
racial
right,
things,
and I'm not saying Andrew Mitchell called him that, but that there were, they talked about this whole issue of breaking his pledge of no new taxes. Then he was criticized for it, obviously when he didn't win a second term, and now everyone, as they look back on history, are saying, that was a moment of courage. So the same people who were criticizing that as a horrible, bad political move that he made, now they're looking back at it and saying that was a matter of courage. Is it just passage of time that causes people to change their tune, or is this everyone kind of getting on the bandwagon saying great things about someone who has passed away?
I think it's that. I think that you have to show respect for the office and the man that was in the office, whether you agree with him politically or not. And by the way, me being the left-wing radical liberal that I am,
yes,
I never voted for Reagan or for Bush.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
And that being said, nobody should be surprised by that.
I was not surprised at all. In fact, I would have been surprised had you told me you did vote for him.
I voted for John Anderson once. I mean, at some point. But anyway, point being, when someone passes, this is, you know what? And I am going to bring up the person in the White House today.
Well, you have already brought him up.
I know, I'm going to bring him
You're
up
acting
again.
as if this would be the first time
because one
today,
of the
this
biggest
conversation.
complaints about that guy now
Yes.
is he's not presidential.
Right.
He does not carry himself in a respectful manner. He speaks before he thinks, for sure,
Right.
and uses Twitter to espouse his opinions and what have you. Whereas HW always had class. He always commanded respect. If you look at his credentials as far as how he served the public, both as a military man and as a servant in public office and as a president or in politics, he was respected.
Right.
When he passes away, this is not the time to go back. Hey, do you remember the time when he did such and such and he was racist? Oh, wait, don't forget about the time that he did this.
No,
Come on.
I'm not saying that should be the case. But
Right.
if you, for example.
But why point out the fact that was even done and then
Well, here's
blame
what-
it on the media for being hypocritical?
Well,
It's like,
now-
no, how about being respectful?
Well, here's what I would have done. Let's say when I did interview him, there was some breaking news that he gave me back in the
exclusive.
80s. Right. Let's say his exclusive at the time it ended up being it wasn't exclusive, but let's say I got an exclusive at the time and it turned into this controversial thing that he said something and it was quite negative about him, right? And then all these years later, I'm reflecting on him in a much kinder, gentler way, right? Maybe I said back then that he was, played into the whole wimp thing that was part of the conversation at the time. You know what I would say? If I'm reporting on him now, I would say, you know what? Back in the 80s, I said things about him that in retrospect were wrong, or at the time were part of the conversation and seem right, but now when we see the entire book, it was wrong. And that's I think that's more what maybe some people are saying, maybe not this particular article, but certainly what I'm thinking is if you're going to get up there and have a complete love fest for someone as a former president, and rightly so, as a the leader of this free country and world, and someone who, as you were pointing out, Jimmy, we look fondly back on now,
right?
Given the current circumstances, how he was able to reach across the aisle. It wasn't that he got along with Democrats and so forth. It was just that he didn't demonize them.
Right.
So if
nice
you're,
way
well,
to
I think others have said that as well. So
Yeah.
it's not unique to me. But
Okay.
but I would say this, that if I'm going to be talking about him in more than just sort of breaking news coverage of here's what's happening at his service and so forth, and you are reflecting on his past, then I think it needs to be a more complete picture that you're giving. You can't just get up there and ignore some of the things that you said about him in the past. You have to point out that, a lot of people got it wrong, or maybe at the time it was right, but looking back on it, it wasn't. There are a lot of things you can say, and that's where you can gain trust from the public, when you admit that, maybe you were wrong. But now you're trying to correct that.
I want to talk about the words you're using to
Yes.
describe your reporting.
Yes.
You use the words right and wrong.
Right.
Isn't it more, I'm going to use the word accurate and inaccurate? At the time, reporting on what you reported on
Right.
and the words you used, it was an accurate report.
It was an accurate report.
History has taught us, perhaps, or in time we have learned of an inaccuracy, but at the time,
Right.
you were doing your job.
Yeah, look, and I think that's a great way of pointing it out, Jimmy, because it isn't that it is inaccurate at the time that we were doing it. And some of it may have been. Some of it may have been just sort of partisan thinking. But I think you're right. When you look at something, if you give it a little time, then you reflect on it, you say, okay, yeah, the circumstances now give us different glasses to look at this, and this is how we would report that now.
Right.
And you're right. But I do think that if you're going to stand up there and talk about how great he is, and I know when someone passes away, that really is what you should be focusing
Right.
on.
You can always tell funny stories about
tell
that.
funny- right.
George W. did a great job with his eulogy.
He did a very
And-
good job.
and,
Yes.
And in my opinion, shockingly so. But he spoke as a son who would talk about his father, as opposed to him playing the role as president.
Right.
which
No, it was powerful. A lot
yeah.
of what he said was powerful. But I think it's a good. It was a good example for us to sort of apply a little bit of self-criticism. If you were very outspoken, and it's not to say that everybody was, that you can point the finger at, but if someone really was known as being the anti-voice, if you will, of the former president, and now that person is, sort of flowing with nothing but, praise and rainbows
for
and
the
so
dead,
forth.
It's a basic common
I know
courtesy.
respect is fine, but I think if you did something like that, you need to clean it up. It's almost like clean yourself up before you start. Not you, Jimmy.
Oh, God.
Don't be sad. I'm not saying you have. I'm just saying I'm speaking about if you were the person who was very vocal
George
in
will.
criticizing.
George will.
Right,
Let's call him out. For crying out loud.
If you were very outspoken against the president in the past about a host of things, whether it's his proclamation of no new taxes, or whether it's this whole notion of him, the wimp factor and so forth, if you said it then now as he moves on or has moved on, you need to correct that. I think you do. It's not you don't have to make a big deal about it. You just need to do that one line,
I think it would help each person individually who's been a reporter and has been in the trenches, who covered that time. If that makes them feel better about themselves,
Then yes.
then do it.
Well, it would make me feel better about them as well.
Right. Well, again, the point is, he's no longer with us. He served his country well. Let's salute him. By the way, great moment. Bob Dole getting up out of his wheelchair.
But it was sad too.
Woo!
Though.
Oh,
that
my
was
God.
probably one of the most powerful visuals. There was that, and then there was the dog that was
Oh, yeah.
at
The
his
service
casket,
dog,
service dog. It's amazing how one picture or one moment, one piece of video, the power that it can. I watched the Bob Dole thing over and over and over, and there's a statesman. I mean, there's someone who wasn't gonna. He can't stand on his own, but he got help to stand up, and barely could get his hand up to be able to salute him, but it was powerful. I watched it many, many times.
It was definitely one of those moments, and you said it's a moment in time. A photo can say 1,000 words.
It said a lot.
Okay, so now, just in case any of my students are watching this, okay, the final on Monday, I have another photo that I'm using where they have to describe and use 1,000 words to describe it. I'm just saying.
Oh, nice little exercise.
It's a nice little exercise.
Yeah.
By the way, we've done it a few times. I think they actually understand it now.
Right.
I wasn't sure. A few more times on the quizzes, I was like, what are you guys doing?
What if it's 999 words?
They get a lot of credit for that.
Oh, okay, but not all credit.
No, and it's
got to have 1,000.
And the image I'm using is the migrant workers at the wall.
That's
trying to
with
get
the,
it's pretty powerful.
Okay, oh, great stuff.
Thought I'd just interject that.
No, very
not that they're going to be listening to this, although, of course, if they are, they get
extra
a little
credit.
edge. They get some extra credit. They get a little edge going into that final.
And if you're listening to it, you can get extra credit too. Like this episode on Facebook, use the hashtag Behind the Media to engage with us on Twitter. And if you have any questions or comments, reach out to us at info@littlepartmedia.com. That's info@littlepartmedia.com. Okay, we're at halftime, Jimmy, and at halftime we like to talk about, in the past we've talked about your undergarments.
Yes.
We haven't done that for a while. That
Thankfully,
sponsor,
that's true.
But now we've been talking about your suitcase as you're thinking about going away for the holidays, and I think you're lacking in the suitcase department. Is that correct?
An overnight bag is not something I have of my own.
And what was it stolen, or
No,
did it break over time, or
just-
you've been carrying paper bags and plastic bags around?
I usually overpack, so I usually take a larger bag and check it through.
Okay.
I don't want to carry it onto the plane.
Oh, see, I'm a carry-on kind of guy.
And most people are.
Because then you don't have to wait.
When
you get to your destination.
What are you in such a, well, granted, if you're on a deadline and you have to run through the airport like,
O.J. Simpson.
Like that convicted guy that didn't really do it, but he did it.
By the way, you know who O.J. Simpson is, Stephen?
Yeah.
Oh, he does know.
God.
Okay. I just wanted to ask.
Goodness gracious. Holy moly.
But do you know the
I'm not that
No,
young.
but do you know the reference of running through the airport?
No.
No, I don't.
That's what I
right.
meant. So, for those of you
Hertz or Amos?
Hertz. I think it's Hertz, yeah.
I think it's Hertz.
He was very popular at the height of his retire. I don't think it was while he was playing. It may have been right after. Right after. And there was this Hertz commercial of him running through an airport with a carry-on or something. And that's what he was known for. He was, the guy who could dodge everybody, and he was doing that through the airport. It was probably one of the most famous commercials out there.
Yes.
Even if you didn't know who he was as a football player, you knew who he was because of the Hertz commercial. So
Right.
that's what that reference is. Good.
Right.
I'm glad we stumped Steven.
Right. No, and that I get that.
Do you like being stumped? Huh?
Nothing new there.
That's right.
No.
Not a big challenge. Is that what you're saying, Steve?
No. No. He knows all that stuff.
Yeah, we hold him responsible for his entire generation.
Exactly. That's right. Anyway, so this episode is powered by Away, thoughtful standards for modern travel. Away makes... Why we talk about suitcases? Because Away makes suitcases for the way we all actually travel, with features like an ejectable TSA-approved battery or built-in front pocket, and they come in a range of colors and materials, so you don't have to worry about colors that you don't like. They can even match your outfit if you'd like to. It will suit your travel style. Away suitcases are also made from lightweight, durable German polycarbonate or aluminum alloy, so it means you don't have to go and work out at the gym in order to carry it, or you can carry it as a carry-on, Jimmy, because it won't be that heavy like some of the others.
If you use a carry-on.
If you use
and
a
most
carry-on.
do.
And most do. The interior compression system lets you pack more, so that's in reference to Jimmy, who likes to have that giant suitcases where he packs a lot of stuff. But this one allows you to do the same thing in less space. They come with 360-degree spinner wheels. Those are great. So you don't have to lug the thing. You can just push the thing and get down the aisle of the plane. Makes it very easy. There's a removable, washable laundry bag. Away has the perfect gift for everyone on your list, because this holiday season, everyone wants to get away. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com and enter promo code CLNS. Okay. Wow. So, do you suffer from tocophobia? If you do, then it may surprise you what one expert is now saying may contribute to the problem. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Behind the Media. I'm Dan Lothian.
And I'm Jimmy Young.
We find the interesting in media so you don't have to go searching for it. Like us on Facebook, use the hashtag Behind the Media to engage with us on Twitter, and listen on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and the CLNS Media Network.
Now,
Today's...
Go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, now?
No. I want you to keep going because
Okay.
I know you're not done.
Today's episode is powered by Away, thoughtful standards for modern travel. Away makes suitcases for the way we all actually travel, with features like an ejectable TSA-approved battery or a built-in front pocket, and they come in a range of colors and materials that suit your travel style. Away has the perfect gift for everyone on your list, because this holiday season, everyone wants to get away. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com and enter promo code CLNS. Did you have something you wanted to talk about, Jimmy?
And this is why one of the reasons why I love this show so much.
Yes.
And you do some research and find all these things, and then you share them with me,
Yeah.
and I look at them and I go, "What the hell is tocophobia?" And I'm thinking it had something to do with Taco Bell.
Well, I was thinking it had something to do with spiders. I don't know why. It just felt very spiderish.
Okay.
What about you, Stephen?
Tocophobia.
When you saw that, what comes to mind? Oh no, did we
If
stump?
it's millennial related, twerking. I just have to say that.
Well, in a way, it kind of has something to do with twerking.
I guess.
It's-
I mean, they both begin with T. I mean,
Right. No.
and it has- I
There's a
understand.
broader
Yes,
connection here.
Yes.
And
sir.
so
And,
what we did, let's
a broader connection.
Ooh, very nice. Yes. Okay, so we went to Wikipedia to give sort of the Wikipedia version
Explain
of
this
what this
one.
is.
Explain
and
this
So,
to me,
and then
please.
we'll tell you why we're talking about it,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So, tocophobia, which it's TOCOPHOBIA, or it could be TOKO. I see that as well, PHOBIA, and it is a significant fear of childbirth. It is the most common reason why some women request an elective cesarean section. The fear often includes fear of injury to the baby, genital tract, or death, and treatment may occur via counseling.
Wow.
Yeah. I've never heard of this thing. I mean,
I have
I've
never
heard
heard
people
of
say,
it.
"Oh, I'm scared of getting pregnant," but I didn't know there was a term for
Scared
this.
about going through that process.
That process.
of as they say,
Giving birth.
Yes, giving birth, and I believe it was. I'm trying to remember who said this in the past, but it's like it's like crapping a watermelon. I had to figure out a way to say it without using an expletive.
Oh my goodness!
But when
I
you
don't
have
know
that
you were-
visual, if you have that visual, that is not a pleasant visual. I just
Oh
wanna say.
my goodness, Stephen!
And-
I think that needs to be the tease for this podcast. If you could tease that out,
Yeah.
maybe that will get some attention. It's like crapping a watermelon.
Cropping out a watermelon.
Right. That's,
And by the way, if men were giving birth,
there would be no children.
there would be
on
no
Earth.
children because we are total wimps when it
Right.
comes to pain.
Exactly. Okay. So
We know that.
So
That being
how in the
said-
world are we going down this crazy
Why
trail right now?
does this
Right.
have anything to do with the media,
Right, 'cause
Dan?
this is not a medical show.
No, it's
right? This is not a Dr. Phil kind of show for shock kind of stuff, pulling shock value out of communities around the country and the world.
Yes.
We are simply talking about the media, so obviously there has to be some connection here. The connection is that
Tell me, Dan. What is it, Dan?
The connection is that there is a rise in tocophobia, and one expert believes that the reason for that is social media.
In what capacity, Dan? Because when you told me this, I was like, huh?
Yes. So here's the reason why. We've had the discussion about how social media is it's an unrealistic painting of someone's life. It's what people want you to think they're doing, not what they're actually doing.
And I also think
right?
people use it to share their thoughts
They could be sharing their
with
thoughts
their
right,
friends
with their friends
and their world
right.
on Facebook.
But we buy
a
into
form of therapy, if you will.
It could be a form of therapy, but we've talked about how young women are having a difficult time with body image because they
Yes.
see everyone looking nice and pretty and whatever with some perfect little picture. There are people who feel really horrible about themselves when they can't afford to go on a vacation, but they see all their friends with these wonderful pictures from everywhere, where they may have been just taking them off some sites and we're lying that they actually went anywhere. They're showing all the best things of their kid that their kids are doing, not showing that their kids have run away from home 12 times. So it gives a distorted view of what real everyday life is for many people. Okay?
Yes.
So this is a long setup to say it's the same problem that we're seeing now with tocophobia, which is there are women who are putting out information about how horrible childbirth is, and they're sharing pictures, and they're sharing stories, and they're sharing videos, and stuff that often would happen in the shadows is now
being
accessible
shared with the world.
It's being shared with the world, and women are looking at that, coughing and saying tocophobia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fascinated by it, I guess, but I'm also like, I have no idea. I mean, look, I did not have to go through labor.
No, you didn't.
I did not
But
have
somebody
to push
went
out a
through labor,
watermelon.
But somebody pushed out you as a watermelon.
Yes, they did.
Yes,
Yes, she did.
Yes.
And
Were you a heavy baby, by the way? Big baby?
no, I was perfect, actually, and I haven't changed. I had to do it.
How much did you weigh?
7 pounds, 15 ounces.
Ooh, I weighed more. I was around 8 pounds.
Yeah.
So my mom did push
wait,
out a watermelon.
By 1 ounce. 7 pounds, 15 ounces.
It's a huge difference. If you didn't make it to 8, it was a huge difference.
All right.
Okay, so here it is. So there's.
By the way, happiest day of my life when my son was born.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say when you were born. It was the happiest day of your life.
Can't remember that.
So this expert, her last name is Jones, and she is from the University of Hull in the UK. And she was speaking at the British Science Festival. And we found this article on a spot called KidSpot. It's an online site. And she talked about the connection between social media and this growing fear of childbirth. And she said this: just have to Google childbirth and you're met with a tsunami of horror stories. If you go on forums, there are women telling their stories of childbirth. Oh, it was terrible. It was a bloodbath. This and that happened. I think that can be quite frightening for women to engage with and read about.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I also, no disrespect to Steve and his entire generation.
Which means there is
I'm
disrespect.
going to I don't know how tough they are. And I know there's certainly, we have an all-volunteer army now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I'm a wimp. I'll admit it. I'm not quite sure I would want to have a child if I knew that I would have to blank out a watermelon.
Yeah.
Now he's censoring.
I think that if you had to put out a watermelon, you would.
It's my favorite fruit.
Especially if you knew that other men were also putting out watermelons, you could do it.
Because
you don't want to you don't want them in the locker room.
Actually,
going, hey, Jimmy couldn't push out the watermelon today.
And I will say that's when you can challenge me. When I have been challenged, my masculinity has been challenged in the past.
Although it may be challenged again given this conversation. Oh my goodness! So
it's the holiday season, folks. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I could just to kind of continue.
And this
on
is this actually.
This is real. This is serious.
I was going to say we don't want to make light of it.
This is a real
We're a couple
issue.
of guys. We cannot understand
Right.
what it's like unless you were. And you know what? When you are in the room with your significant other,
Right.
who is bringing a new life into the world.
Right.
You are rooting for her. You are coaching her. You are, and you feel her pain.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Mentally.
you
feel her pain.
You do,
not
but
physically.
Exactly. So the doctor who is behind this this lecture that connected the dots between tocophobia and social media said this as well. Quote, I think negative stories online can have a tremendously powerful and undermining effect on pregnant women. But that doesn't mean the person who shares a story is to blame, she said. The thing is, we have hardly anywhere for women to share their birth stories of any kind at the moment.
Ooh, now that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's not really a platform for it, and so it's just kind of out there, and so women are seeing it, and she believes it's not the only reason, obviously, behind this, but there's this sense that this growing information wave, which is good and also bad, is influencing some women. So the issue then becomes, what do you do about it? And what is being done about it is that there are people who have set up various different platforms where people can share positive stories about childbirth. So I guess if you see the negative stuff, maybe somehow you can be directed to the positive stuff, and it will cause you to rethink childbirth.
And I got to tell you, though, the relief on the mother's face and the joy of holding a newborn child within seconds.
Nothing like it.
I've never seen. I mean, the happiness and joy. I mean, everybody's crying in there. You know what I mean? It's
including the baby,
a happy
if they're
cry.
healthy.
Well, absolutely.
After they've been smacked.
Right, absolutely.
Yes.
So, I mean,
by the way, why can you slap a baby in order to have the baby cry, but spanking is illegal?
I never thought about that, Dan. Are you going to start,
the anti-slapping
That's right.
baby movement?
Would you like to just give him a little rub?
Yes. Positive time out, maybe.
Oh, God.
Maybe tell the baby
that
time
poor
out.
kid hasn't been on Earth for more than 5 seconds. You're going to put him in the corner already?
Give the baby time out, see if the baby will cry, and that way you don't have to slap it. So this thing that's being started, this is
two guys.
Actually, this is
by the way,
this is the most interesting. I have to say, it's the most interesting podcast in the history of podcasts.
Two guys
for us.
talking about childbirth,
and watermelons,
That's
and
right.
watermelons at that. So this, so what they've set up. Someone has set up what they're calling the Positive Birth Movement. It's a global network of these different groups linked together by social media, and they're telling these positive stories about childbirth again. So countering all the negativity out there, and we've talked about the importance of other kinds of content to counter the negative political stuff that's going on in the world. Now, positive childbirth stories to help women overcome tocophobia.
Tocophobia. Yes, indeed. That's what we do here on Behind the Media. We come up with words you've never heard of before and turn them into a segment.
Exactly. So if you'd like to know about more words that we can turn, or tell us about words that we should turn into a segment, let us know. Like us on Facebook, use the hashtag Behind the Media to engage with us on Twitter. And if you have any questions or comments, also reach out to us at info@littlepartmedia.com. That's info@littlepartmedia.com. It's time for Bites Behind the Media, making you smarter at home, on the go, and around the water cooler. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Behind the Media. I'm Dan Lothian.
And I'm Jimmy Young.
We find the interesting in media so you don't have to go searching for it. Like us on Facebook, use the hashtag Behind the Media to engage with us on Twitter, and listen on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and the CLNS Media Network. Today's episode is powered by Away, thoughtful standards for modern travel. Away makes suitcases for the way we all actually travel, with features like an ejectable TSA-approved battery or built-in front pocket, and they come in a range of colors and materials that suit your travel style. Away has the perfect gift for everyone on your list, because this holiday season, everyone wants to get away. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com and enter promo code CLNS. Okay, Jimmy, let's start off with the breaking news, almost, sort of breaking news, and that is Kevin Hart. Are you a Kevin Hart fan, by the way?
Sure.
What do you mean, sure? Do you know who it is?
Yeah, I know who he is now, but I didn't.
What, now? Like today?
I
Steven, you know who Kevin Hart is? Yes. Okay, good.
I told you I'm painfully unhip, but it's not
You know,
something that I would
I
ever...
met him actually in
cool.
Hawaii at a hotel. By meeting him, he was there. He was talking on the phone. I heard the voice. He really does sound like that. And I turn around and there he was, little guy, you know, and nice and doing. He has been around for a long time, but has only become an A-lister in the last couple of years.
Right.
And A-list meant that now he could host the Oscars.
I guess so. I was a Billy Crystal fan.
Yes, so was I.
Okay.
Yes, but Billy, why? That's like
Because it may have been the last time. No.
Oh, you mean a comedian hosted?
Yes.
Yeah, well, hosted something.
Hosted the Oscars.
Right.
For
Was
a
that
long
the last time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, that's what he hosted.
No, I'm saying, is he the last comedian to host?
No.
I can't think of who it would be because this is not my.
Yeah. I
Steven?
do watch the Oscars, though. I love movies.
Okay. Nothing Steven's saying, shaking his head. He doesn't
Yeah.
have anything on that. Anyway, just a couple of days, it was the high point of his career. He had always apparently talked about wanting to do it. If he were asked, it would be the greatest moment of his life. And only the next day to back away from it. And why did he do that, Jimmy, you might ask?
Yes. Why did he do that, I asked, Dan?
Old social media postings have come back to haunt him. Isn't that something that happens like every week?
Well, every politician has to go through it, and every athlete
telling
goes
you,
through it.
it just- you know what?
If anybody in the public eye
Yeah, at some point.
should know that anything that you put out on a text
Right.
or a tweet is forever.
Yes. Someone,
in the
even if you
digital
delete
universe.
it, somebody has already captured it.
That's right.
And it will come back to haunt you.
Yes.
I'm so glad that all that stuff was not around when I was young and stupid.
Right.
Because there'd be a lot of stupid stuff. You know, it is
I'm
true
old
that
and
we.
stupid now, and I don't use it. Okay, I just want to say.
I just say positive stuff.
Right.
But the thing
Why
is,
can't it be
you can't,
positive?
you cannot, we all change. I don't think that anyone should be held responsible for something that they haven't done in a long period of time. I think you acknowledge it, with apparently he has done in the past. You acknowledge it and you move on. You can't, we all say stupid. It's like saying, you know what, you should have known better when you were a baby not to cry in church. No, you can't. You were young, and that's what you do at the time. There's a lot of stupid stuff that you do. I don't think you should be held responsible for it. But in this particular case, he made in 2009, and these are tweets between 2009 and 2011 that had derogatory language referring to gay people and disparaging remarks and comments about their sexuality. right? And in one particular case, he said the following, according to CNN.com. Yo, if my son comes home and tries to play, the number 2, play with my daughter's dollhouse, I'm going to break it over his head and say in my voice, stop, that's gay.
That's not a good thing to do.
That's
and
not
by
a
the
good,
way, and
it's violence, too.
Even 9 years ago, that was shocking.
That was shocking. But the thing is, this isn't the first time he's been confronted with these things, and he has talked about how, look, I've grown up, I've moved beyond it, blah, 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 blah.
You make mistakes to learn from the mistakes. It sounds like he's learned from his mistakes.
He has.
Now it's cost him a gig on the Oscars.
Yes, and he's been, as you know, he came forward and had the whole issue with, I think, had an affair or something like that. But anyway, in this particular case, gets the moment that one day it's he's at the peak of his life, and the next day he's brought down. Apparently, the Oscar folks came to him and said, look, just apologize and you can hang on to your job doing this. And he said he wasn't going to apologize, and he was backing away from it because he didn't want to be a distraction for the Oscars. So, look, life is unfortunate, and I think it's another warning for anyone out there. If you got stuff in social media that's going to come back to get you, just don't become a big deal.
Right.
As long as you remain as a B-lister, nobody will come after you, usually.
I've always tried. It's something I strive for. I don't want people to know me. I don't want them to know what I'm doing. Just leave me alone.
Don't be an A-lister.
But by all means, subscribe, download, share it.
Yes.
Like us. Whatever.
Make the show as popular as you can.
Please.
So, yes.
But, whatever.
But then, that moves you to A-list category, and your tweets will come back to haunt you.
Yes.
So beware. Okay.
I got this next
Okay,
one.
go ahead.
Can I do the next one? This is Steven Spielberg,
no,
right?
you do that one.
Is that all right?
No, Jimmy, it's not all right.
Okay, thanks. Because I know you did the work on this.
No, go ahead. No,
but
I just pointed it out so that you could do the work, Jimmy.
So here it is, the 25th anniversary of Steven Spielberg's award-winning movie, Schindler's List. It's going to be re-released.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting of the timing of this. First of all, I don't know, I'm sure you have heard that anti-Semitic incidents are on the rise both in Europe and in this country.
Right.
And by the way, I don't care if it's anti-Semitic or if it's racist or it's anti-gay. It isn't. It should not be part of our daily or even monthly conversation.
No, it should not.
It should not be.
No.
And yet here we go again.
Yep.
And it's interesting that, and this is a great quote by Steven Spielberg, who I think universally respected. I mean,
so far,
yeah, hasn't done anything wrong that we know of. Right?
So far, yes. As of today, as of this recording, yes.
A great quote. And granted, he did bring up the Charlottesville riots in this, setting it up, and this was
in an interview with NBC.
Lester
Holt.
Right. And a recent shooting, of course, in the synagogue in Pittsburgh. And the quote is, well, just that individual hate is a terrible thing, but when collective hate organizes and gets industrialized, then genocide follows.
Wow.
That is very powerful. It's a great quote, and unfortunately, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's true. It's sad. It's true.
Yeah.
And we know that there are nations out there that are dedicated to getting rid of Israel, the Jewish state, and yet they still survive day after day.
Ooh, now we're going down politics.
I don't.
We're going Reverend Young.
Reverend Young's coming
dipping
out
his
again.
Toes into the politics.
It's just, I don't get how you can teach hate to a child. And by the way, the Palestinians do this. This is part of their schooling. And I recently found out a friend has a daughter, Jewish daughter, in Palestine, teaching English to these kids. And I said to him, I said, so are they like pledging hatred to the Israelis every day like we pledge to allegiance to the United States? And he goes, well, it's part of their teachings.
Right.
And I'm like,
look, there's
mackerel,
it's the one thing that I can tell you. Having been in that, I've been in that region twice. Once for NBC, the other time for CNN. It is something that obviously has its roots in biblical times. I don't know that there'll ever be an easy solution for it in our lifetime or ever, because it's so deeply rooted. It is not just black and white. It's not that easy. And I think there have been many attempts to forge a peaceful solution to that, and I pray that someday we'll see that, but not so far.
No, and we are in the 21st century at this point, at the beginning still of the 21st century, and I pray and hope after I am gone at the end of this century that we will have made some progress in embracing the differences amongst us rather than letting those differences separate us.
Although the fact that this movie, Schindler's List, is being re-released, and we're having this conversation about how it is an important time for this to be re-released, it shows that even after all these decades, we're almost back to square one.
Oh, I think we've gone backwards, Dan.
Maybe
and
beyond square. Yeah,
we have talked about that.
In fact,
we have
square
regressed,
one,
which
yes,
is another reason
regressed.
why it's good that they're re-releasing it.
And for those of you who might be too young, like I think our director, Steven, might not know about Schindler's List. Okay, he does not know. He's shaking his head. So just for those of you who don't know about it,
go see it.
It's a movie about a German who saves some 1,200 lives of Jewish folks, refugees from the Nazis, and it's a powerful movie of how this German comes to the rescue, and it will leave you. I mean, at the time when I first saw it, I think what I was thinking is, how in the world is all of this happening anyhow?
How did humans
do that?
This
Right,
to other humans?
And now I don't think that. Now I know.
Right.
Which is sad.
That it happened.
And so that's
we
kind of.
can't let it happen again.
We cannot. Okay, Twitter. We've often talked about Twitter ups and downs and so forth, but I think this is kind of interesting that media buyers are saying that they like the ad platform on Twitter because it's simple and reliable. So this is, you go and you want to do a promoted piece of content. It's not very complicated. You can just, do a couple of clicks here and there, and your promo Why are you looking like that?
Because
Jimmy?
I don't use it. I don't want to use it. I just can't get it.
Well, but this is for advertising. We're talking about they see it, even though they're not going to spend a lot more money. They just think that it's a much friendlier advertising platform for them than Facebook.
Okay.
Right. So.
I wouldn't know. I'm going to be perfect.
Like this, you're an anti-Twitter guy.
I am anti-Twitter.
I think you just don't like birds, and so their little logo thing. With
I don't like the abuse of Twitter.
Oh, well, that's
Do
true.
I need to go where that's coming from?
No, you don't.
Thank you very much.
Okay, one final little bite.
I like this bite. You take this.
No, you go ahead and take it.
This is all about.
Where do you think? We'll ask the question again. Where do you think that most people get their news from? When they're watching the news, when they're listening to the news, or when they're reading the news?
And again, it depends on the age of the person.
No. Well, it does to a certain extent, but this is a broader. This is a broader survey.
This is a Pew Research survey.
Right.
Center study. They're very respected in the research world.
Yes, they are.
And I think it's interesting that people are still saying they watch and get their news from television.
Television, yes. And the numbers are almost identical to what they were a couple of years ago.
Right.
So it's remaining pretty solid.
What is TV, Dan? What's TV? Honest to God. I mean, I'm being serious.
It's a giant box with a screen. Actually, it's not a giant box anymore. It's just a screen.
Right, now it's just a screen.
It's just a screen with
flat.
little things to plug into other things.
My point is, if it's on video.
Yeah, is that TV?
Is that TV?
Yeah, it was hard for me. I was trying to figure that out. But apparently, as you read through the report further down, it does say that it's television news. They specifically talk about the preference for watching news on television. And the reason for that is because it's a habit. It's familiar. It's what you know. It's easy. You just turn it on. You don't have to keep scrolling through things or doing anything. You just turn it on, especially like breaking news, for example. You have it on, and as you're cleaning the house, as you're at work or whatever, it's just on. So it's an ease of access, if you will. So to break down the numbers just a little bit, Jimmy, 47% of us say that we get our news from watching video, watching it on TV. 34% say that they read the news, and 19% listen to it. Although we're hoping our podcast will encourage more and more people to listen to it.
So it says most Americans who prefer to watch the news prefer to watch on television. It says 75% here.
No.
I just look right here. Look, I have it highlighted.
How do you say most Americans who prefer to watch the news prefer to watch it via television? Only 20% prefer to watch what? Via the internet. No, that's how you watch it.
Oh, how you watch it.
That's the watching of it.
So most of goes to my point. So, it's like, are you watching ABC, NBC,
No,
CBS
so
news?
they're getting their news from video, right? So we were saying, but the majority, then it breaks it down within that video thing. What percentage of it is for television? What percentage is for internet?
And I'll tell you, the real question and the real trend is, where do people get their entertainment from now? And it is via the internet, and all these new channels are out there. I'm finding more and more people are paying to opt out of commercial television
Right.
to watch their Netflix or their Amazon Primes or their
Right. They are.
they're
Yeah.
opting and they're paying to get rid of the commercials so that the hour-long program can be 43 minutes.
Right,
And
right.
then you can watch 2 or 3 of these in a row before you know it. It's 11 o'clock at night and you're going to bed.
And did I tell you the other night I was at my daughter's track practice and had a couple hours to kill, and she was outside in severe conditions, and I was in the nice warm vehicle watching. And so I wanted to watch some news, and I watched the PBS NewsHour streaming on my phone.
Right.
That's the first time I've ever done that.
Wow.
And there were a number of
I
other
was going to
programs.
say, welcome to the 21st
Yeah,
century,
I know.
Dan.
I'm a little slow.
I mean, I may be unhip, okay, but that's.
So you say I'm on hipper?
No, I watch a lot of streaming sporting events
Well,
on
yeah,
my phone or on my
I've done
screens.
that, but I've
Okay.
never done a newscast. I've never
Interesting.
watched a newscast streaming like that. And so I feel like I'm, maybe a little closer to Steven's age now.
Yes, and do I rail against PBS at this point, or you want to save that for another day?
Why are you going to rail against PBS?
I hate everything about public television
Oh,
and
my
public
goodness.
radio.
You do this all the time.
Yeah, I don't like it. I just don't like it. I don't think that my tax dollars. Why should our hard work for years? And matter of fact, we're trying hard to drive people following this and what have you. Right? We're working
There's
hard on this. Right?
value in public television. There's some
For the
rich
less
content.
than 1% of the
Rich
people who watch
content
it.
in public television and public radio
Let
that
'em earn it.
otherwise would be out
Let 'em earn it.
buried somewhere in the woods.
Good. Bury it. Earn it. Earn it like everybody else has to earn it.
We're gonna
And by
do a
the way,
segment
have you
on
seen
this.
the YouTubers, what they're calling entertainment?
Yeah, it's garbage.
Yeah, well, again, they earned it, though.
Yeah, but it's garbage.
But they earned it. Garbage draws listeners and viewers.
Yes.
And by the way,
Yes.
so does negativity and
But we're
and
staying away
bitchiness.
from negativity,
We are trying
and
to.
we're trying to stay away from garbage.
Yes.
So that's where NPR
All right.
and PBS
I'll let you get away with
are
it.
wonderful.
I know that you
wanna
like
have
it. I don't.
I
That's a
want to
good-
have. I
let-
want to have a show on that
let's do that.
sometime. The
Let's do
value
that.
of PBS
Oh!
and NPR.
You know, I
The
told you
value.
what happened when a guy came to my house looking to raise money for PBS, right?
He ended up being the plumber.
Yeah, no, he
What?
didn't. He was actually out there looking to raise money door
Yeah,
to door.
I think you called the cops on him.
I did not call
You
the cops on
berated him.
I said, I'm sure you seem like a very nice man. But
Then you dressed him
I
down.
said, you definitely
Get off
came-
my step.
You
I'm
definitely
gonna
came
shoot
to the
you.
wrong house.
Yeah.
And let me explain to you why.
See, I don't do that. I welcome people into my house.
I said, I'm sure you seem like a nice
Actually, I don't do that. Why did I say that? I don't do that.
I was going to say, I like
You
people.
welcome people.
I like
So you
people.
must really dislike PBS in order to not
really
like people.
dislike
Okay, we're going to do a segment on that at some point. So anyway, it was a fun show. We were a little out of control, but some weeks, especially around the holiday season, it's okay for us to let our hair down, even though we don't have much hair. Certainly I don't. Thanks for listening and enjoying this podcast. We know you did because we did. Like it, share it, keep listening on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and the CLNS Media Network. For our director, Steve Helmuth, I'm Dan Lothian.
And I'm Jimmy Young.
And now you know what's behind the media.